Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Welcome back to another edition of The Talking Stick. I'm Jess, and per usual, I am your hostess. This week's going to be a little bit different. We're actually going to do two relatable concepts and then two others. I will not post on Thanksgiving, maybe a live that just says, how much I'm grateful for everyone or something like that. But so this week we'll have 4 episodes. So today and tomorrow we're going to focus on something that I've recently had some personal experience with. I know everything I have personal experience with, but those are the topics that I tend to relate to, and I figure if I've had experience, so have you. So basically, today is going to be just reviewing toxic people in our lives and how to identify them. Tomorrow will be narcissism. There are many types, and it is something that is relevant to our society and becoming even more so with the online social media presence in our lives now. So, it's something that I would definitely like to talk about. But for today, we're going to actually be talking about just, the prequel to sort of narcissism, and that is toxic people. Now, let's be real. I mean, everybody can be a little toxic at times and have, toxic traits that come and go or maybe are relevant to certain situations. But this is going to kind of cover people who are consistently that way, who cover many of these traits, and, bring that to our lives and our space. So let's begin. So I have 25 toxic traits here, and I'm not going to actually describe every single one because, I mean, we all, you know, have made it out of third grade for the most part and can understand these words for what they are. But I will give some examples throughout each, each trait. So, number one, general negativity. They often see the world at large as cold and cruel and evil and against them. They work in a defeatist perspective, and, they're the cup half empty people, right? Judgmentalness. Okay, they're constantly in judgment. Obviously, people who are, insecure will judge all situations as negative, or just be like assumptive, thinking something's gonna be horrible before they've even experienced it, things like that. Dishonesty. Oh. Now this one is so hard to understand. I mean, for me, perhaps it's naivety, but I generally think people are honest until they prove otherwise, right? Until I catch them in some type of lie or something to that effect. So this one actually kind of burns me often with toxic people. And, I mean, honestly, it's like everyone can, like, for example, if you're telling a story and you tell it one way and then, 5 months later you tell it again and it changes slightly. I don't know if I consider that quite dishonesty. It's just, relative to memory and, how you're feeling at the time and how your expression may, change. So, rigidness, very stubborn, stubborn is actually another way to put it. They just, it's like their way or the highway. And if things don't go as planned, or something different happens than they may expect, it turns super negative, right? Rudeness. So, I really like that idea that, like, if someone's rude to the waitress, it says a lot, right? For me, in my younger years, I definitely served tables and did that job. So, I'm really careful and really honestly, have a lot of respect for them. The job's not easy, and a lot of people expect, a sense of like slavery. Um, that they can just like be like however they want because you're there serving their table and bringing them food. So, anyhow, please and thank you. You know, gratitude, lack of gratitude can also be rude. But just generally, I mean, I know I can be blunt and people kind of, take that as being rude at times. And I guess there is that perspective, but we're just talking about general disrespect for people. Lack of empathy. Okay. So, yeah, I tend to be someone who has too much empathy for people. But, someone who just generally doesn't care and doesn't seem to exhibit any level of empathy, definitely toxic. Now, a lot of these will align with tomorrow's episode on narcissism, so, that's one of the reasons I put them together. But there is a difference, right? And we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Cynicism, someone who's very cynical, um, you know, so it's like, again, we can bring it to that table wherein we're talking about the server, um, and it's like, oh, they'll be like, oh yeah, they're only nice to us because they're expecting or wanting a good tip. It's like, okay, well, it's kind of their job. And yeah, that's kind of understood, but then they'll use that as a reason to like not tip them well, right? Recklessness, somebody who literally, you know, is encouraging you to do something that maybe would hurt you and even making fun of you if you don't. Like those people, like drug pushers, right? um, I mean, I always like, why would someone try to push drugs on another person? Like they're usually, if the person says no, it's like, okay, more for them. Pickiness. Now I know for me, like pickiness is something that I struggle with. I'm super picky about things and such, food especially. So yeah, there's that. And but this I think is talking more about people who are like have these like extreme standards about reality and definitely aren't willing to let go of those standards in any way and become, again, as we discussed earlier, very judgmental in that situation. So, but as far as food is concerned, I am someone who's picky. I mean, I will try things, but I have this weird texture thing. So it's often not even about the food's taste, it's about the texture. And I try really hard, but my throat closes as soon as weird textures enter my mouth. So I can identify with that. And I'm sure you will identify with some of this as well because no one's perfect. And we all, like I said, it's a waxing and waning experience that we have with these traits. So, don't feel bad if you see yourself in some of these. Now, if you see yourself in all of these, it may be you know, time to reflect. So, argumentativeness. Now, this isn't just somebody stating their opinion or reflecting something that is, generally different than what you think. This is like someone who just argues to argue, right? The sake of arguing is, sort of their MO. They just like to one up people and will literally argue about anything. And it could be something that doesn't even have the space for it, right? Uh, Quick to anger. That's another thing. And again, I mean, if someone's going through something and feeling really stressed out, this could definitely be something that is more prevalent at that time. Patience is definitely, procured. And so I think everyone has, moments of frustration or times when they're a little less patient. But this is somebody who, like, just gets angry all the time. Bossiness, so showing dominance, attempting to control you and boss you around, and this isn't just someone who's like, hey, what about this? Or, this is how I feel or think. This is about someone telling you how you need to feel or think or how you need to act. Self-centeredness, people who only think of themselves. I mean, which kind of goes around like arrogance, but I've seen people be very self-centered, but not necessarily arrogant. They're just like, you know, basically it's always about them. And a lot of times self-centered people are also very negative, so that goes hand in hand. But arrogance is like they're just always right. They have the best of everything. And again, arrogance, to me, that is falling again a lot of these into narcissism. Greedy or stinginess, people who don't want to share things, who don't want to give to others. And a lot of times they're takers, they'll take a lot but not give a lot. Sneakiness, ooh, sneaky. No. Sneakiness to me is like, again, that type of like, it's a type of dishonesty, right? And so I get so frustrated when people are like, oh, they didn't lie, they just didn't say anything, it's not the same thing. I'm like, well, that's being sneaky, and that is the same thing in my opinion. So thoughtlessness, someone who isn't very thoughtful about what they're doing or saying, and again, it's like people who just, you share a secret with them, and not only do they tell others, but they like tell others in a group situation, like mention it at a big dinner or something like that. Like maybe a woman finds out she's pregnant, she tells a close friend, and then they're at a family dinner, and the person says, oh, are you not drinking wine tonight because of the baby or something like that? And then everybody's like, what? That type of thing. So conflict avoidance is another one that's maybe not as noticeable. And it can, literally, be an antithesis to some of this, the conflict avoidance. Now, I think that it's healthy to, pick your battles, of course. I don't think that that's what they're talking about. I think they're talking about people who generally just do not express how they truly feel, or, bring to the table their ideas because they just want to avoid conflict. So, impulsiveness, again, somebody who doesn't really think too much before they act. Maybe they are somebody who goes out and goes on a shopping spree and then turns around and asks you to borrow money for their electric bill, that type of thing. Laziness, lazy. I mean, laziness can express itself in both physical and emotional attributes, right? So, but I'd say it's mostly physical. So they're like always the people that like you want to do something with them and they're like, oh, come to my place. And they just don't ever come to your place because that's, they just are lazy about it. And of course there could be other reasons, like say their place is super small, but yours is really big and it's more comfortable. That's understandable. Or they always want you to drive, or, they say, oh, hey, let's do this project together, and then they stand around while you do it all. Those people. Apathetic, people who may struggle with caring about things, right? So they don't really invest emotionally in things. They just sort of go through the motions. Now, you know, again, some of these traits can be conditional. So if you find yourself this way in a certain conditional experience, I don't necessarily think that's a toxic trait. This is something that, is a consistent experience with someone, right? So a lack of self-awareness, they don't know how they affect the environment, or they don't care, um, where they stand in the energetic of the room. Um, so they might self-sabotage too, like this. I think that's one that's not really here, is like self-sabotage. People who will create goals and then self-sabotage and then be like, it didn't happen, poor me, that type of thing. So absolutism is the final one, and that's like extreme, good or bad, black and white people. Now, this again is part of narcissism. A lot of these traits actually are, but with someone who's narcissistic, it's all of these things at once plus some, as you'll see. And there are many types of narcissism too, so there could be a variety of these in someone who actually operates that way. Now, I found that there are 7 types of toxic people. So the conversational narcissist, uh, um, so that again is bringing in narcissism. So I'm not sure this is kind of maybe for tomorrow. So that's, you know, the narcissist person or people that I've recently dealt with, one of them is definitely like this, like has no patience for anyone else's expression, literally cuts you off constantly and will not let you in edgewise. But then when you try to speak while they're speaking, they accuse and gaslight you of doing that. So, um, yeah. So anyhow, let's move forward because we'll kind of get more into that narcissistic tendencies tomorrow. The straitjacket is the type of personality that wants to control everything and everyone. They want to be in charge of what you do and what you think. Um, so, yeah, again, it's somebody who's just constantly trying to tell you what to do. Um, the emotional moocher, this is someone who, like, literally kind of calls you to tell you all of their negative, experiences and stuff, and just will not really let the conversation be anything else. The emotional moocher or spiritual vampire. Now, these people, when I used to work in music, I thought these were the most rampant, super fan type people. Also, groupie kind of energies, wherein they're only there to, gain something from the situation. And it's usually a very uh, self absorbed status type thing. But these people also are always very negative. So I think, it's like the straitjacket and the emotional moocher can kind of be a hybrid. Um, Always pessimistic people. Drama magnet, the drama queens. It's like they come to you with this negative stuff and you help them solve the problems, and then instead of just relaxing into something fun, it's another issue. It's constantly something. They're always kind of in crisis, right? So, I think everyone has times where that's real. So, some of us more than others, like very real shit happening. Oh, excuse me. Very real. So, I think it's just important to really remember that, and not necessarily, these aren't to be labeling people, but to just recognize when these patterns are constant. So the jealous, judgmental, they have like a lot of self-loathing and self-hatred, and so they are constantly in a state of judgment and criticism. So again, these are just like personality types that really take a few of those above toxic traits and bring it down to um, a constant, or combine them, and it's literally what is their overwhelming trait. The Okay, and the fibber, I mean, that's self-explanatory. It's mostly like, people who are constantly telling the big fish stories about themselves, and it's not even like they're even really exaggerating. They're like, straight, it never happened. So, those people do exist. And again, the narcissist that I recently experienced definitely was that. So, the tank is always right. They do not care about anyone else. Um, they think they're okay. So, the tank is definitely a narcissist. Okay. So, everything you think is being run over or discounted or, you know, thought to be ridiculous. So, they just can make themselves feel better by demeaning you, basically. So, yeah, this is just, I really wanted to just cover like the concepts of just toxic people at large, because, like I said, it doesn't always mean that they're like a narcissist or, need to go be even further like diagnosed for narcissistic personality disorder. But, there are people who sort of maybe aren't that extreme, but bring this stuff to relationships and interactions. So, and again, like I was saying in the beginning, all of us, every single one of us has a point in life where we can be somewhat toxic, or, you know, during certain situations, or, maybe even you're identifying some of this stuff within yourself. So if you are, don't fret. It's definitely not meaning that you're like a horrible person or anything like that. It just means like, hey, maybe I can work on that or become more aware, right? So that's what this episode was meant to do, is just sort of bring a level of awareness so that we can all work toward our better selves. So anyhow, I'm going to leave it there. And please join us tomorrow for the sort of extenuating episode wherein we go more into the narcissistic personality disorder, the how it presents itself, and the different types that there are. Okay? Well, per usual, thank you so much for showing to grow and glow here on planet Earth as human beings. I appreciate you so, and I'm fully grateful for all of you that are continuing to join me here. Please, like, comment, share, subscribe, and let's continue this process of growing closer together as human beings, despite wherever we may be on the planet. All right. Okay. I will see you all tomorrow. Thanks so much. Bye bye.